if a person like Rabbi Anderson, because he's a strict Orthodox, isn't he? So if he acknowledges Kabbalah,
Well, I
then
don't
what's the
think,
deal?
I don't think that they really don't acknowledge it, they just don't, they don't study it. I mean, it's there, they admit it's there, but I just don't think they study it.
Yeah, so there's a few different ideas. So one of them is that it's restricted
Right, that was,
for study for anyone who doesn't meet quite a long series of qualifications. Okay?
Okay.
And for good reason.
None of which do we meet.
Yes,
Oh.
none of us meet. Well, I guess I'm
pretty
getting there. At least I got the
Not old
age
enough.
and I got the
Oh,
family.
you got the age?
Yeah, well, at 40. 40 is the
40
age.
was the age.
Yeah.
And you have to be a male,
And
obviously.
yeah, for sure. You have to be married. You have to have kids. There's a few other things. You have to be, I think, a heck of a lot more learned than I am. But at the very, very first class that we ever had, a few months ago, I brought some sources, some modern Orthodox sources and some older sources that explain that most of the reasons for objecting to the study of Kabbalah have long since expired. About 500 years ago they expired. So think of it this way. If I had brought you all the information and the wisdom that goes into making a tablet or an iPhone 500 years ago, you would have declared me a witch or a warlock or whatever, and you would have burned me at the stake. Not because what I said was wrong, but because I must be some kind of magician from outer space to
Right.
have. And that's the risk of the wisdom of the Zohar. It explains things that cannot be understood without context. Cannot. And the context didn't exist 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, to understand the wisdom of the Zohar without driving you crazy. We don't have that anymore. We've got context. We know that the universe is 14 billion light years wide, or 19 billion, and that's what we call the visible universe, and that doesn't drive us crazy. I don't think. I mean, most people.
You can't imagine it, but
Yeah, you can't imagine
accept
it,
it.
but most people have some general sense that just our solar system is way, way bigger than we could possibly imagine, and it doesn't make us go cuckoo in the head. Well, a few hundred years ago it did. It made people go cuckoo in the head. You know? They would learn something like that the sun is the center of the solar system, not the earth. They didn't even know about the other planets. And they just realized,
Yeah,
it doesn't all
true.
revolve around us.
Yeah.
They start learning. It's like, you're crazy, again, burn you at the stake, get out of the church, get out of the whatever, no way. Well, Zohar said it 2,000 years ago.
now was it you who said last week that was talking about like things like Isaac Newton and a lot of these revelations and ideas that were embedded in
He
the Zohar.
says that he got them from the Zohar. In his own notebooks, he says that.
But you had to be
And-
capable of understanding it.
Well, I agree. It takes a. So even going back to Sharon's question about, are these stories or are they truth? Well, I think as with everything, it's a bit of both. It's a bit of both. There's aspects of it that must be. You need to take the story literally, but you also need to understand that if you only take it literally, you're missing some of the best elements of it.
You have to delve into it.
You have to. And I can't say that I really. I read a bunch of things in preparation for tonight, and I'm only going to share one or two of them because it was just way too deep for me. It really was. And I did.
After class, I'll explain.
Yeah, thank you. And I didn't have time to really delve in much more detail. So let's talk a little bit about the portion of the week. If we have time, we'll come back to a little bit more of this later. I just want to get to a few other things. Okay, Parshat Emor. That's what we're in right now, the portion of Emor. And Emor talks about a number of things. It starts with some of the responsibilities of the Kohanim, specifically the Kohen Gadol, things that he can do and can't do, relationships they can have and can't have. Then it gets into all about requirements for observations of Shabbos, and then into the holidays. Then it goes through the holidays, and the Zohar matches it. So the Zohar is quite a bit about the holidays, and just again because we're in the time of the Omer, let's talk about the Omer. So this section is talking about why do we have to count 49 days. And we talked about this a little bit, but I never read the source, so let's read the source. So for a little bit of context, it's talking about some things that we learned I think it's in the last portion, I think it was in Kiddushin. We learn about different types of, we'll call them bodily functions that can make men or women impure, but more specifically women. So when a woman becomes impure, she has to count 7 days in order to renew her purity. That's basically the law. So the Zohar comes along and says, well, if it only takes 7 days for purity to be, become upon us, why do we need 7 weeks? Shouldn't it just be 7 days? That's the logical idea. So that's the context of where we're at. And I read it. I read some of the stuff leading up to it, and I'll just, for example, it says this is, where did it say here? Okay, here it says. So he's recounting what it says. Then she shall number to herself 7 days, while here it says, that's where it says in the previous section, while here in this section it says 7 complete Shabbatot. So you have to complete 7 weeks, 7 Shabboses. You have to go through seven Shabboses in order to reach the end. Why?
If having a baby.
What's that?
If they're having a baby.
Well, but this is talking about the counting of the Sfirot. The counting of the Omer, right? So it's saying, why in this section is it talking about having to count 7 Shabbatot, which equates to 7 weeks? So he answers, this is in order to be worthy of being purified by the water from the flowing and emerging river, which is Binah. We've talked a little bit about the structure of the 10 Sfirot. Binah is the second one. The lights of which, it's the third one. The lights of which are called living waters. From that river, 7 Shabbatot come out. And it counts those 7 Shabbatot according to the 7 Sfirot. Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, and Malchut. And inside each of those are 7 Sfirot. Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, Malchut. So this is where we were talking about last week that we've got. So last night was Hod of Hod. It was the 5th day of the 5th week. So embodied within this river that flows from Binah, and Binah is, we talked about last week, Binah is supernal Ima, the supernal mother that feeds us all of our energy. So supernal Ima, from supernal Ima flows 7 sub-levels of 7 levels of purity that bring us to the end, and that's where we got our 49 from. So that's what you count. And it says, in order to merit Ze'er Anpin on the holiday of Shavuot and receive the Torah, like a wife receives her husband on her night of purity, of cleanness. So that's the idea. So at the end of this whole process, supernal Ima is going to mate with supernal Abba again. Right now they're separated. And they have to be separated for 7 weeks. They have to be separated for 7 days within 7 weeks, as opposed to just simply 7 days. And those are accounting of the 49 gates, negative gates of Binah, that we need to climb out of. That's where we were in Egypt. So we'll start over for a minute. Okay? So instead of counting 7 days, which is the normal length of time that it takes to become pure in the Torah is telling us between when you left Egypt and when you arrive at Mount Sinai for the giving of the Torah, you're going to have to count 7 weeks, not 7 days. Why do you have to count 7 weeks? Well, you were in the 49th negative level, which is right before the whole world gets destroyed. You were in the 49th negative level before I took you out of Egypt. To count back out of those 49 levels, I'm going to separate supernal Ima and supernal Abba, just like they'd be separated during a man or a woman's time of uncleanliness. And you're going to count back until you reach the highest level of purity, and the cleanliness is renewed upon you, and then they're going to mate again on the night of Shavuot. They're going to come back together as husband and wife, and all of the energy that they reveal is going to be showered down upon you. That's what's going to happen. But you got to do it through Chesed Gevurah Tiferet Netzach Hod Yisod Malchut of Chesed Gevurah Tiferet Netzach Hod Yisod Malchut. So each one is divided, and that's where we had that chart. Remember, we pulled the chart from art school. That's where you have 49 days. Chesed of Chesed, Gvurah of Chesed, Tiferet of Chesed, until you get to the next one. And now you count 7 more sets of the second level, 7 more sets of the third level, 7 more sets of the fourth level. Until you get to the 7 more sets of the 7th level, you've reached the 49th gate. The next night is the 50th. You revealed everything.
Now, could you look at it as being, since we were at, like the 49th gate, okay, could you look at it as being each day of the Omer, we're coming up?
That's right. We're climbing.
That's an oversimplification.
No, that's right. That's what we're doing, and it's there's a little bit of, I guess, a kind of a juxtaposition happening, because the idea the Omer was supposed to be a celebratory time. It was supposed to be only happiness. Like, wow, we spent a day out of Egypt. Now we're 2 days out of Egypt. Now we're 3 days out. 4 days, and we still didn't go back. 5 days. 49 days. We've been all looking forward to the revelation of the Torah at Mount Sinai.
And on the 33rd day, you can get a hit.
And on the 33rd day, you get here in the desert. I don't know about that. But then we've got the story of Rabbi Akiva, which kind of a little bit taints it, But that was the idea. It was supposed to be only purity. And then it ends here. I skipped a section here, but it ends here. Come and see whoever did not number this reckoning, meaning whoever didn't count the Omer, these 7 complete Shabbatot, to earn this purity, is not considered pure, and is not among the pure, nor is he worthy of having a portion of the Torah. And whoever arrives pure on that day, on Shavuot, and did not lose the count, upon reaching the night of Shavuot, he needs to be occupied in the Torah and unite with it, and keep supernal purity that comes to him on that night, so he is purified.
That's someone who has kept.
Right. So if you didn't count, you didn't earn it, and you don't become pure. And if
when I was in the hospital, I lost 2 days. So when I came out, I started counting.
You'll enjoy the rest of what we're going to talk about tonight.
Oh.
And then the next section is talking about Shavuot night, and it talks about why we step all night. But we're not going to get into that right now. Maybe we'll get into that next week or the week after, before Shavuot. So I just want to share a little bit more about
I have a
that.
question.
Yeah.
So can you give me an example of what would make a man not be clean?
I think he's called a zav. I think that's the word they use for
Well,
it.
if he has
It's-
a mission.
Because a
Yeah.
woman would be having a baby, right?
Right.
So that would be an
or a
example.
period.
Yeah, or a period.
Right, if a
Right,
man,
But what would be a
has-
man?
If a man has a seminal emission,
right,
like,
either
in the morning, you wake up and you have it, you're impure.
that's right.
So he has to go to the mikveh, okay, and then, I mean, it corrects itself.
In
one
some
day.
in some cases it's
Next
one day,
one.
in some cases it's a week. It depends on the situation. In most cases it's a day.
Let's oversimplify it.
There must be a lot of men at the mix.
I mean,
There
well,
should be.
that's exactly what I was going to
There
say.
should be.
There should be a lot more than there are.
Do men still do that?
Yeah.
Do they still go?
I go.
You do?
Yeah.
Did you see the video of the mikveh?
Yes. With the woman.
Well, I'll have to show it to Ellie after class.
I didn't show you guys I'll show you the mikveh of the Ari. I've got pictures of that on here.
Well, this is funny.
Yeah, this is,
I don't know who sent that. Somebody sent that. That was funny.
are those things in somewhat order?
Some of them, but somebody was asking me for the tree of life, and I said I had it. I don't know who it was.
Nobody talked about it last week.
Yeah, here it comes to. This is the law of the man with a discharge, and from whom there is a seminal discharge, to which he becomes contaminated. I mean, that's one of them. He has to come. Actually, in the time of the temple, he had to come with an offering, and then I believe he had to immerse
That's
himself.
not being with a woman. That's being by himself, correct?
It can be either way, I believe.
Really?
It's best for a man to go no matter what.
So just in plain English, so every time a man would have sex, he would have to go?
Should.
Wow.
So this thing must be.
Yeah,
close
here
by.
it says, when the man with the discharge ceases his discharge, he shall count for himself 7 days from his cessation. Now that's different. I think that's called a zav.
But what,
Yeah.
kind of, what is the difference between that discharge and?
I don't remember.
All right.
Any man will have a discharge from his flesh. That's the difference.
Okay.
I don't know what kind of, if we're talking like a pussy discharge or something like that. We talk only the best kind of stuff here. This shall be his contamination. Whether his flesh runs with his discharge, becomes stopped up because his discharge is contamination. And it talks about his bedding becomes impure.
Wow.
So yeah, in some cases it says contaminated until evening. In other cases he has to wait 7 days. Yeah, here it says. It also says that it says a zav is different from semen, but they're similar. And it depends on how many of them he had. That's part of what it is. But I could have sworn something here, somewhere in the commentary, it says whether it was normal, mildest 2 degrees. Yeah, okay. I don't see it right here. But I'm almost sure it doesn't matter whether it's because of an accident or it's because he had sex with his wife. Yeah, I don't think it matters. That's not a zav though. That's one who just I think becomes impure until the evening. Okay, Valkyrie. I think that's a term that they use. Okay, we'll come back to that some other time. All right. I wanted to talk about tonight. I thought we would go into Pirkei Avot. And this is a lot of fun. I think you'll like this, Stu. I think you'll appreciate this more even after the story you just told me about not really having a chance to count in all situations. So in this book, for whatever reason, it refers to this as Mishnah 20 and Mishnah 21. I think most places refers to them 15 and 16. I don't know why there's a discrepancy in this particular copy of the book. So Pirkei Avot, most people translate it as ethics of the father, or ethics of the fathers. And the idea of the ethics of the fathers versus some of the other Mishnayot is that this is basically how the rabbis live their lives. This is more like what's the word I'm looking for here? Like wisdom. Like this is the kind of thing that like a father would pass down to his son, as opposed to be, because most of the Mishnayot are detailed out in the Gemara. They're discussed at length. I don't think Pirkei Avot is. I should ask Rabbi Laxmir. I meant to ask him this morning, but I don't think that it is. I think it sits on its own. Because, like I said, it's not really. There's no halachot. There's no like laws of how you should live your life that are derived directly from this. This is like I said. This is more personal wisdom. This is the way the rabbis live their personal lives. This is the kind of things that they wanted to share with us and us to be aware of. That hopefully we could learn an interesting lesson from.
When was this written?
Well, it had been. I don't know when it was physically written down, but we're talking about the same time frame because. For example, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shimon, they're all quoted in here. So this is all, somewhere around 1900 years ago. So it's starting by quoting Rabbi Tarfon. So again, just because I happen to have it and I have it available, so this is the gravesite of Rabbi Tarfon. He's kind of buried up in a hill, actually very close to the Ijur Rabbah that we were looking at before. You can almost see his gravesite from there. He's got this amazing tree, which they say is like 2,000 years old, that's still there. That's just it's incredible the way it like grows almost through the marker.
Is there much of a problem with desecration of these sites?
Very little, very little. I haven't really seen much of that. Let's see if I've got any other pictures. And it's quite beautiful the way it's like perched up on a hill, the view from it. I mean, you can't see so well, but down past the tree here. I mean, it's really, it's up in a hill, and like in not a very populated area near Tzfat. So Rabbi Tarfon was he was a Kohen. He writes in his own journals that he served in the temple, in the Beit HaMikdash. It had been like when he was very, very young, because I believe that the second temple was destroyed when he was very young. If I understand his the time frame that he lived in. He's known for a few different stories. A couple of the simpler stories that I always remember. He was known to honor his mother tremendously. So if she ever had to walk in the courtyard barefoot, so he would actually put his hands under her feet to allow her to walk. That was the way that he honored her, and he always honored her. And there's some kind of story. I'm just remembering this while we're talking. There's some kind of story where he could smell his mother coming, or he could hear her coming from a distance that doesn't make any sense, just because. And then he would announce that a holy woman is coming, a tzadikah is coming. And he was also known to be exceedingly wealthy and to use his wealth only for spreading of Torah, helping poor students study more, helping his family, spread everything that he could. And he was extremely humble about it. And somebody told me a story which I've never been able to find, but there's a story that one of his students came to him and said, "Would you invest my money for me? I mean, you've obviously become very wealthy, and you've figured this out." And he says, "Nobody ever asked me that before. That's interesting. Sure, okay." And he proceeds to take the man's money and donate all of it to charity, 100%. And the guy says, "Are you crazy?" He says, What do you want from me? This is how I live my life. You asked me to invest your money. This is the best investment you're ever going to get. I don't think it's exactly what he said, but you got the idea. Investing in Hashem is a much better investment than your brokerage account.
And a return.
Yeah, I wish I had the rest of that story, right? But I never heard.
There must have been somebody.
I know, yeah, and now the rest of the story. Anyway, this is a little bit about Rabbi Tarfon. So it says, Rabbi Tarfon Omer, Hayom Katzer, Hamalacha Me'ubah, Ve'hapoalim Atzelim, V'asachar Rabba, U'valavayit Dochet. So it translates this way. The day, Rabbi Tarfon says, the day is short, the task is abundant, the laborers are lazy, the reward is great, and the master of the house is insistent. That's the whole thing. So again, this is kind of like the fatherly wisdom type of thing. Okay?
Then he goes on to explain it.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about it. So he goes on to explain it a little bit in the next Mishnah, but let's stay on this Mishnah for a minute, and we'll try and get to the next one. So he starts by saying the day is short. So what are we supposed to learn from this? Life is short. Life is meant to be treasured. And there's some wisdom that's brought down in the commentary that says that the way that a fool is defined as a fool is anybody who loses something that was given to him. Life is given to you as a gift. The time that you have on this planet is a gift. If you don't see it as short, you're likely to lose it. So what happens? You lose time, you lose life, not literally losing your life, but you lose a portion of your life by giving it away to nonsense and foolishness, and next thing you know, life is short, because that's what happens. And in the heavens, you would be called a fool because you lost it. It's just like losing a great treasure, And it actually tells a story of a king who tells a groom on the day of his wedding, you have 24 hours. Every coin that you can count in my treasury, you get to keep. And he's there, 23 hours and 59 minutes. His eyes are bloodshot, and he's barely staying awake, and he's still struggling. He says, 24 hours. That's all I was given, 24 hours. You better believe I'm going to take every single bit of it I can get. Well, guess what, folks? Life is that same 24 hours. Life is full of those coins. If you make the effort to count the coins, then you will reap the rewards. That's what it's there for. And if you don't, it's like losing a treasure. That's literally what he's saying. It's like losing a treasure. Okay. The task is abundant. There's so much to do. I mean, we're just, I think you'd even say for most of the great rabbis, they're just cracking the surface of the wisdom that's available. I mean, I'd find it hard to believe that even in a lifetime of nonstop Torah study, you could get through all the different commentaries that have been written. And that's just maybe even the commentaries on the Torah. Forget about commentaries on the Talmud and the Midrash and on and on and on and on and on. So the task is huge, and could be overwhelming. We'll get to that in a minute. The laborers are lazy. So I think we can all kind of agree that human nature is one where we would prefer to kind of sit around and have it given to us. We'd rather get the most reward for the least amount of effort, right? That's what we'd like to have. So ultimately, part of the job of reading this wisdom is acknowledging to ourselves, no matter how hard we work, we're still lazy when it comes to the big picture. And some of the commentators go back and they basically say that this phrase, laborers are lazy, is actually a commentary on the task is abundant. Why? Because it's a kind of a chicken or the egg situation. Why are you lazy?
Because there's so much work.
Because there's so much work to do. That's
So why
exactly
start?
right. So why even start? It's hard to believe that anybody could ever look at things that way, and yet it's very easy to understand.
Thank you.
Right?
Extremely easy.
Right. So logic would tell us that we should look at this and say, oh my gosh, there's so much to do, I better get going. But that settles in for a second, and next thing we're like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do, I can't even get going. I guess I'll just go do something else. I guess I'll just get lazy.
Go fishing.
Yeah, right? Great value in that. So the question kind of is, like I said, which is first? Is it the laziness that makes it seem like so much work, or is it the so much work that causes us to be lazy? And again, most of the commentators agree that that the laziness is a commentary on how much work there is to do. Okay, but the reward is great. So we've talked about this kind of idea before, but Hashem wants to pay us more than we even want to get paid. Just like, it says, Hashem loves you. Rabbi Wein says this all the time, loves you more than you love your own children.
Right.
Okay? Or we talked about this when we were studying from Rav Ashlag. Rav Ashlag talked about the idea that a cow wants its calf to drink its milk, wants to feed it sustenance, more than the calf wants to drink from its mother. A newborn calf, that's all it has to do in this world is drink and sleep. And yet the mother wants to give it more than the calf wants to take it. And that's the nature of Hashem. The nature of Hashem is that the reward is great, greater than we can possibly imagine. That's His essence. His essence is He wants to give us all of this. So if we don't get it, if we behave in a lazy manner, if we choose to see that the task is too overwhelming to even start, the loss is ours, not His. Okay, that's our sacrifice. That's our missing out on Him. And then it continues and it says the master of the house is insistent. Okay, so the master of the house is insistent. This means that it's not optional. A lot of us look at the situation, we say, so if we had a normal employer, you'd say, you know what, if I don't want to go to work today, I'm not going to go to work. I may suffer consequences. I may not get paid today. If I've done this enough times, I might even get fired, right? But, it's a simple cause-effect relationship. There's nothing really to it. The employer can look at that situation kind of clearly and say, hey, if students show up to work today, I'll get somebody else to replace him, and that's his problem, not my problem. And for us, in our relationship with Hashem, we need to see this as we're going to finish this job one way or the other. I mean, the world needs to come back to a place of completeness, to a place of Mashiach, to a place of holiness, and that's our job. You don't want to do it in this lifetime? No problem. You can come back next lifetime and do it again. So the job is not optional. It's not a situation where, well, let's get somebody else to replace you. You as an individual will do it. You will complete your process. It's just a matter of what, that's right, what time you want to do it in. And in a way of speaking, Hashem does care. So again, a human employer might look at this and say, well, I just won't pay you. And Hashem is looking at this and saying, I won't pay you, but it hurts me not to pay you. It hurts. Okay, again, we've talked about Hashem is not really affected by us, but we need to look at it in the way that Hashem is affected by us. We need to see it as the fact that He is, that's right, and He is giving an infinite amount all the time. That's what He's doing. He's bestowing it upon us, and we're putting up this blockage. We're saying, I don't want it, I'd rather be lazy. So He's not stopping. It's like the rays of the sun. The sun is shining all the time. Nothing's going to stop the sun from shining. You want to rotate the earth halfway around so you're in darkness? I mean, whatever. You want to put sunscreen on? You want to go in your house? You want to hide under the shade of a tree? Whatever you want to do. I'm not stopping to share my sun, except we're not talking about the sun. We're talking about the life force, the light force of Hashem that He wants to give us. So in a way of speaking, we are hurting our employer by not doing our job. That's what we're saying. The master of the house is insistent. This is no joke. This is no game. The master of the house needs us to do this. Again, not for his benefit, for our benefit. But if we don't do it, it hurts him. Hurts him more than it hurts us, so to speak. Okay. So then Rabbi Tarfon continues. This is the next, I guess we'll say, section or chapter. He says, Hu haya omer, so he's saying he used to say, and it's talking about Rabbi Tarfon again, Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor, v'lo ata ven chorin livatel mimena, which is a very famous saying. Maybe you've heard this before. There's songs that are, Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor, v'lo ata ben chorin livatel mimena. You ever heard this? Sounds somewhat familiar? Anyway, it's very famous.
In English?
You are not required to complete the task, yet you are not free to withdraw from it. That's what the saying goes. And the reason why I started even looking at this is because the Ramchal mentions it in his book Mesilat Yesharim, the path of the just, the path of righteousness. He mentions a specific phrase, and we'll get to the commentary in just a minute.
Oh, is that saying? Could you repeat again in English?
Yeah, let me finish it, and then I'll read the whole thing in English. So it's not too long. It's the whole thing. Im lamadata Torah harbe, nonim lecha sachar harbe, v'ne'eman hu bal melachtecha, sheshalem lecha sachar pulatecha, b'da shematan scharan shel tzadikim le'atid lavo. So Rabbi Tarfon used to say, you are not required to complete the task, yet you are not free to withdraw from it. If you have studied much Torah, they give you great reward. And if your employer can be relied upon to pay you the wage of your labor, and your employer can be relied upon to pay you the wage of your labor, but be aware that the reward of the righteous will be given in the world to come. Okay, that's the entire Mishnah.
Okay, but when you say that you don't have to do it, but you can't withdraw.
You are not required to complete the task,
Right.
yet you are not free to withdraw from
Okay,
it.
but is that saying that at some future time you are going to complete the task?
Right, so let's talk about that. All right. So this comes back to this idea of he's basically commenting on what he was saying before. Why even start if you can't finish? Right? Well, he's telling you why even start. You're not required to complete it. Nobody asked you to. So how do we know this? So this is, again, a little bit of a contradiction compared to what we were talking about before. But Why would we say you're not required to complete the task? Well, let's again go back to the very beginning. So before, let's say before time started, before this world started, Hashem was sharing infinite goodness with a vessel. That's kind of what we called it, with a singular vessel. And that singular vessel was infinitely receiving. Okay? Well, to some extent, that never really changed. Hashem is still sharing infinitely. We live in a world of, we'll call it cause and effect, where the spiritual and the physical are reflections of the same idea, the same world. And so, if Hashem is sharing infinitely, then our job is to earn infinity. Right? That's where I'm trying to get back to. I'm trying to get back to the place where I'm in oneness with Hashem. That's where we're all trying to get back to. That's the time of Mashiach.
We want to receive as much as we can.
Right. We want to receive as much as we can. How much is Hashem sharing? Hashem is sharing infinitely. Right. He's all powerful. He's all knowing. He's all. Where do you even begin? All right. And I want to get back close to Him. So what am I trying to do? Get as much as I can. What do I really want to do? I want to get back to infinity. So how much closer am I to receiving infinitely now that I've been through however many lifetimes that I've been through, done all the tasks that I've gone through? Maybe I served in the Beit HaMikdash, 2,000 years ago. Maybe I shared wisdom with, people over the years. How much closer am I to infinity now? Or what if I become a great tzaddik in this lifetime and I give charity and I study Torah all day long and I, or maybe, who knows, save lives, whatever I do. How much closer am I to infinity in that situation than I am right now, or was I 2,000 years ago? According to mathematics, 0. I'm not any closer. I'm not any closer, right? So think about it this way. If you're at level 1 and somebody else is at level 10 million, how much closer is the person at level 10 million to infinity than the person at level 1 is to infinity? They are exactly the same distance away. They are infinitely far away. That's how far they are. So the task is incompletable. It's impossible.
But we have to try.
We have to try. And that shows the true mercy of Hashem. That's what he's saying here. You're not required to complete the task. How could you be? But still, I'm going to give you everything. I'm going to give you everything, even though there's no way you could ever earn it. That's what I'm going to give you. But you got to make the effort. You're not released from the burden of making the effort. Absolutely not. Okay? So then it continues on. If you've studied much Torah, they give you great reward. Okay, so sometimes you'll hear Torah referred to as water. Like sometimes you'll hear Torah is water and Kabbalah is wine. That's one way you refer to it. Sometimes you'll hear Torah is lechem, is bread, and you'll hear a few different analogies. One of the analogies of Torah is that Torah is like water. Okay, and how do we learn? How do we toil in Torah? Drop by drop by drop, just like the way water works in this world. The way it creates a path to flow in the earth, or in a stone, or through whatever. Drop by drop by drop, and that's all the effort. It's all the effort, so to speak, that we're required to make in investing in the study of Torah. Drop by drop by drop, and that's what will broaden us. Now, he says, if you studied much Torah, they give you great reward. It doesn't say if you learned much Torah. It doesn't say if you remembered much Torah. It doesn't even say if you taught or shared much Torah. If you studied much Torah, if you made the effort in your life to be involved in Torah, then the reward is great. They give you great reward. Okay, and then it continues, and your employer can be relied upon to pay you the wage of your labor. Okay? Hashem doesn't run out of money. Never happens. And again, in theory, you've done nothing for him because you can't do anything for him and because he's infinity and you're finite. So it's both, right? So again, you can get back into the idea of infinity and the task is enormously huge and bigger than we could ever imagine, and so you could never complete the task. So how could you ever get paid, right? That's how people pay you. Even if the task, if you're building a building and the task is divided into a whole bunch of sections, I mean, they're at least, paying you for what you completed on a given day. Hashem is paying you even if you completed, quote unquote, nothing, so to speak. You're being paid. And again, you never have to worry about Hashem running out of money. He's never going to declare bankruptcy. He's reliable. His resources are infinite. And then it ends with this idea that the true reward is in the world to come for the righteous. Okay, so the idea of the reward being in the world to come for the righteous, there's an element of this that you read throughout history that the righteous suffered. Okay, and that has many, many different phases. That time, for the most part in the world, is gone. There was a time when that was necessary for the righteous to suffer, to live poor lives and to be entirely rewarded in the world to come. However, the idea that the wicked will receive all of their reward in this lifetime, in the lifetime of physicality, that hasn't changed. So it's our job to basically find a sort of a balance. We don't have to live in poverty in order to receive all our reward in the world to come. But what we should see, or what it's best to see, is that our efforts pay off in both worlds. However great we think our life is now, and hopefully we'll all at least be able to see strong elements of greatness in our lives, even though I'm sure we all have our struggles, we all have areas that we'd like to be better, but we all have some areas of greatness in our lives. There's no comparison between the greatness that we have in our lives and the greatness that we will receive in the world to come, in the time of Mashiach, if we're able to make the effort to study and live in the way of Torah. And that's what Rabbi Tarfon is sharing with us.
Makes sense.
And with that,
Have a piece of candy. You can't have candy.
I try to stay away. It's
Yeah,
not that I
Yeah,
can't.